So, am I audible now?
You should be.
On Zoom, it's showing me as muted.
Oh, okay, well, I guess see if this fellow can hear you.
Okay, Eric, can you hear me?
Okay, then hit that mute button, Barry, and try it again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, we're just kind of waiting for people to join the meeting.
On TV. All right, Barry.
Okay, so welcome. This is the inaugural meeting of the Building Code Board of Appeals, doing this by Zoom. I'm going to start, if that's okay. I'm going to kind of read off some kind of operating procedures for the Zoom meeting. If I can find it. Okay, I'll be facilitating the Zoom meeting for the video portion of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and public access cable channel 25. During the meeting, when you are not participating, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon found on the lower left-hand side of the Zoom menu next to the video icon. When you are muted, a red line will appear over the icon. Muting your microphone during the meeting will make it easier for everyone to hear. You'll just have to remember to unmute if and when you want to speak. In some cases, I may mute or unmute people as needed to minimize distractions during the meeting. Please remember to state your name every time you speak for the benefit of those listening remotely. You can also turn your video camera on or off by clicking the video icon in the menu. For the purposes of the public meeting, when you are participating in the meeting, please keep your video on. When you are not participating in the meeting, it is okay to turn your video off. You will still be able to listen to the meeting when your video is off. You'll just have to remember to turn your video back on when you are participating. Turning your video off when you are not participating will help make sure that the active meeting participants can be seen on the screen. In some cases, I may turn someone's video off if they are not actively participating to avoid visual distraction during the meeting. You can always turn your video back on during the meeting. If you're participating by phone, you can click *6 to unmute your phone. For those using Zoom, somewhere on your screen, you will see a choice to toggle between speaker and gallery view. Speaker view shows the active speaker. Gallery view tiles all of the meeting participants. Okay, and now we'll just go ahead and start the meeting. I'll start with a roll call. Member Shockey? Not present. Member White? Warren, you're muted. You can also press the space bar. There you go.
Present.
Member Blanchard?
Present.
Member Stocksdill? I see him, but he's muted.
Present.
Thank you. Member Delfelder?
Present.
Member Poole? Not present. Member Brunin?
Present.
Member Balat? You're muted, Alan.
Present. Unmuted.
Thank you. I say I'll unmute, but I'm still kind of working my way through that. Member Jay?
Present.
Member Scott?
Present.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. And I'm not sure why I didn't do the election of officers first, but I didn't. So we'll go ahead and just hopefully pretty quickly go through agenda items 1 and 2. I will reveal right now that agenda item 4, the applicant has asked for a deferral. The applicant for the appeal is working with the Code Enforcement Division on some proposed corrections that would fix the problems that are under appeal. But we'll discuss that further when we get to that item. All right, so now I'm going to try to do a share screen. Okay, so we'll just run through Article 16 of Chapter 5. That is and I think I've done this individually with some of you, but just this kind of lays out the parameters of the board's makeup and kind of operating procedures. So the purpose is basically to assist the city with safeguarding the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city of Lawrence, and to establish and maintain high standards of integrity, skill, and practice in the various construction fields that are regulated. And it's fundamentally fair and necessary that there be an appeals process, and that's the purposes for this Code of Appeals Board. The makeup of the board, if there's any questions, let me know. I'm not going to just go through each and every one of those, but this section defines who makes up the boards. It also discusses term lengths and number of terms and election of officers. There will be a chair and a vice chair, and that election is done at the first meeting of each year. This is the first meeting of this year, so that's why we'll be doing the elections. Bylaws, we do have bylaws that we'll go over next. The secretary of the board is me for now. As we get the board established, we may turn that over to somebody else, but for right now and for the foreseeable future, I kind of envision that I'll be handling that responsibility. Meetings of the board are open, and the records of the board are also open. That's in compliance with the Kansas Open Meetings Act and the Kansas Open Records Act. I think it's likely that we'll probably have a city attorney visit with our board sometime in the future to provide some training on those acts, Kansas Open Meetings Act and Kansas Open Records Act. The city takes both of those responsibilities very seriously and really wants to work in a very transparent way with the community and do the business of this board in full compliance with state laws and as transparent a way as possible. Okay. Conflicts of interest. Board members are asked to refrain from participating in the decision-making process where there may be a conflict of interest. If you feel like you have a conflict of interest on an item, we can hopefully know that before a meeting where an item might come up. I would encourage you to reach out to me, and we'll reach out to the city's attorney and explore those options in advance if at all possible. Board duties, really there are two. It's listed out as 4, but really there's 2. One is to hear appeals from the various code officials that are charged with enforcing the city's building, fire, and property maintenance codes. So that's really 3 separate responsibilities I'm rolling into one, the building codes, fire codes, and property maintenance codes. And also to make various recommendations to the governing body regarding adoption or amendment of the city's construction, property maintenance, and fire codes. Okay, so burden of proof and standard review, limitations and written findings. I'd encourage everybody to kind of go over this individually, read through it, and get to understand it. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll just briefly review. I'm going to enlarge this just a little bit more. Okay, so this item A, unless otherwise specified by the code that is governing the item under review, the appellant has a burden of proof to establish by a preponderance of the evidence. In essence, it's more probably true than not true that the decision of the code official is erroneous or that the penalty is excessive. We're not a court of law. We're an appeal body, or you're an appeal body. You just need to, you don't need proof beyond a shadow of a doubt. You just need them to show that it's probably true that to come to a decision. Okay, so in reviewing an appeal, the board needs to review all of the evidence presented by the appellant and by the city, and then the majority of the board members would make a determination whether the decision is erroneous or that the penalty is excessive, inappropriate, or unreasonable. So you have that ability to reverse the determination or modify or remand the determination back to the appropriate official with instructions for reconsideration, or take whatever other action may be necessary within the bounds of authority to remediate the error. See if, in reviewing an appeal, it appears that the city code does not definitively cover a method of construction, construction material, or other subject regulated by the city code as amended, then the board may interpret the provisions of the city code in a manner consistent with the intent of the city code in order to prevent manifest injustice. However, in doing so, the board shall not have the authority to interpret the administration of the city code, nor shall the board be empowered to waive specific requirements of the city code. So I think this gives the board some authority to, if a matter's not covered, to make a interpretation, but it doesn't allow for a variance from the code. And D, the board shall provide written findings and conclusions regarding any decision it makes on an appeal. The staff or the board secretary or staff liaison, which right now is me, will obviously assist in preparing those written findings. Okay, so final decision. The board is the final authority. The board's decisions cannot be appealed to any higher authority like the city commission, but the appellant could appeal to the district court of Douglas County. Okay, so any questions on that agenda item 1 regarding the Article 16 of Chapter 5, basically the board makeup and board authorities? Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the bylaws. And the bylaws just kind of go into a little more detail on what the board's kind of procedures are. And so purpose, basically this is duplicating the purpose of Chapter 5, Article 16. Duties, same thing. That's just spelled out the same as in Chapter 5. Membership, same. Okay, so Article 3 of the bylaws, officers and staff liaison. Again, just spells out there will be a chair and a vice chair. The terms of the elected officers are 1 year. Officers may be reelected for successive terms. Elections are the first regularly scheduled meeting of each year. If the chair, office of chair becomes vacant, the vice chair shall succeed to that office for the unexpired term. If the office of vice chair becomes vacant, the board will, at the next regular meeting, elect a member to succeed to that office for the unexpired term. So the duties, the chair shall preside at board meetings and shall represent the board as necessary at all city and county meetings. The vice chair will preside at meetings in absence of the chair and represent the board at city and county meetings in the absence of the chair as necessary. Chair pro tem, if there's an absence of both the chair and vice chair at any meeting, the board members present will, by majority vote, appoint a chair pro tem to preside over that particular meeting. This section 6 just says a building official or his or her designee shall serve as the liaison and shall act as secretary. The secretary shall, in consultation with the chair, prepare the agenda and order of business for each meeting. The secretary shall be responsible for recording the minutes of each meeting and for forwarding the approved minutes to the governing body and for preparing written documentation of board decisions. And the secretary shall keep the board informed of all communications. Okay, upon the vacancy of a position on the board, the staff liaison shall notify the city manager's office of the vacancy, and the city manager shall request that the mayor appoint a replacement. Okay, Article 5, attendance. Board members are expected to attend all regular and special meetings of the board. Without the attendance of its members, the board cannot conduct its business. So attendance is important and very much appreciated. The city recognizes that this is a service that you're providing to the community and really appreciates your time and efforts. A board member having 2 or more unexcused absences or 4 or more absences for any reason during one calendar year shall be deemed by the board to have involuntarily resigned his or her position. Failing to notify the chair or staff liaison of an absence at least 24 hours prior to a scheduled meeting shall count as an unexcused absence. Attendance will be reviewed regularly to ensure compliance. Article 6 has to do with conduct. Board members are subject to all rules and regulations as established by the state of Kansas, City of Lawrence, and other governmental jurisdictions and agencies having legal authority to regulate public officials' behavior and conduct. No board member may use his or her title or office in public representations unless authorized to do so by a simple majority vote of the board. I think that's a pretty important piece right there. Just be careful about representing yourself as a board member in public representations. That should be avoided. Okay, Article 7, meetings. The board shall meet on an as-needed basis, but not less than once each year, at a date, time, and place as determined by the staff liaison, with concurrence from a simple majority of the members. The date, time, or place may be changed by the staff liaison with concurrence from a simple majority of the members or by a simple majority of the vote of the members, so long as 10 days notice is given to all board members. If circumstances warrant it, the chair, in consultation with the staff liaison, or the staff liaison in consultation with the chair, may cancel or postpone a regular or special meeting of the board, and if necessary, set a new date, time, and place for the meeting. So that's probably those cancellations aren't going to happen all that often and would only happen in probably some sort of an emergency situation. We actually did that. I should note, in March we had scheduled a meeting and that meeting was canceled because of the pandemic, and just at that point all public meetings were kind of put in limbo. So I guess there is precedent already set for cancellation of a meeting. Okay, Section 2, notice of meetings and agendas for all meetings shall be transmitted to all members of the board at least 1 week prior to the meeting. Notice, agendas, minutes, and other materials may be delivered electronically. Section 3, the chair, in consultation with the staff liaison, or vice versa, may call a special meeting of the board, providing that at least 3 full days notice is given to all board members and to the media and the public. The public posting notice of the special meeting on the board website or via other means as may be available and deemed appropriate by the chair. So special meetings, it just lays out that don't need the full week's notice. You can do that with 3 full days notice. Section 4, all votes on motions shall require a majority vote of the voting members in attendance to pass. And this next sentence is very important. In the event of a tie vote on a particular motion, the motion shall be deemed to have failed. Tie votes do happen, and it's important that everybody understand a tie vote is a failed vote. Section 5 has to do with conflict of interest. A board member shall declare a conflict of interest and shall not participate in, discuss, or vote on any matter in which he or she has a conflict of interest. A substantial interest, as defined by Kansas statute annotated 75-4301A at SEEK, or is otherwise prevented by an applicable city ordinance, resolution, rule, or policy. Any member declaring a conflict of interest with respect to an item before the board shall physically leave the meeting room during the discussion and the vote on the item. So hopefully there would be some inkling that a member would have a conflict of interest in advance of a meeting. I would encourage you to reach out to me or to the city attorney's office if you suspect you have a conflict of interest. My experience with conflicts of interest is that they're usually very narrow issues. You may want to explore whether or not you have a conflict in advance. I've kind of found that a lot of times when you discuss whether or not you have a conflict with the city attorney's office, you actually may not. The bar for conflict of interest, I think, is actually fairly high. If you have a financial stake, yeah, you're probably going to have a conflict of interest. But definitely feel very free to contact city staff to discuss those issues. Okay, section 6, at the beginning of each quasi-judicial item on the agenda or earlier, all voting members shall disclose all ex parte communications. The board member receiving an ex parte communication shall disclose the full nature of the communication, including the identity of the individual or individuals participating in the communications and any information obtained through the communication, so that all board members have the same information upon which to make their decision, and so that the applicant, city staff, interested parties, and the general public are provided a fair opportunity to respond meaningfully to the information. Okay, so an ex parte communication is a communication, whether it be written, electronic, oral, or otherwise, that is relevant to the merits of a quasi-judicial proceeding that is not in the record and that occurs between a board member and a person who is not on the board. Communications between board members, communications between board members and city staff, communications on issues that are not quasi-judicial in nature, and communications on purely procedural matters are not ex parte communications. Okay, so any questions on that one? That one gets a little complicated also sometimes. Okay, feel free to raise questions on that item in advance as well. If we have a question about whether communication is ex parte that I don't know the answer to, I will refer that to the city attorney's office for them to get us an answer. Okay, section 7, it is the duty of each board member to vote on each issue, but a board member may abstain if he or she declares a conflict of interest. So again, that conflict of interest declaration should be in advance of the item being brought up for discussion. Okay, Article 8, quorum. 6 members of the board constitutes a quorum. There must be at least a quorum present before the board may conduct any official business. Informal consideration and discussions may occur in the absence of a quorum. Open meetings and open records. All meetings of the board shall be held in compliance with the Open Meetings Act and the Open Records Act. We just need to be very aware of that. Okay, Article 10 is bylaws. Okay, that's what I thought. Article 10 is the last item of the bylaws. The purpose of the bylaws is to establish rules governing the internal organization of the board and its procedures. The bylaws may be amended at any time by a simple majority vote of all current members of the board and approval by the governing body. So that's important. The board can amend the bylaws, but those amended bylaws aren't approved until approved by the governing body. Amendment to bylaws may be initiated at any time, but must be placed on an agenda prior to a regular meeting before it may be considered by the board. Amendment to the bylaws shall take effect immediately after adoption unless otherwise stipulated in the amendment. So adoption becomes official after approved by the City Commission. Okay, any questions on the bylaws?
Barry, this is Alan Balot. I have a question. If I understand this correctly, at the beginning you said it says that we can't change the building code or the city code by our actions. We can only interpret it. And then, if I understand that correctly, how do we become a quasi-judicial body and make quasi-judicial actions?
That would be in your role of an appeals board. An appeal would be a quasi-judicial matter.
Okay. So that'd be an appeal of a staff decision?
Yes.
Okay, that clarifies it.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions. So we'll move on to agenda item 3. Bear with me while I bring the agenda back to the top. Okay, so agenda item 3 is conduct election officers. Since we don't have officers yet, I will accept nominations for chair. Nominations, you can nominate yourself or nominate somebody else. I will throw Mark Stogstill under the bus. I think Mark's got some experience as a board chairman.
I second that.
That I can't make a motion.
Okay.
I'm just throwing him under the bus.
I nominate Mark Stogstill.
A second?
Mark Stogstill has been nominated as board chair by Member Blanchard, seconded by Member Balot. Are there any further nominations? Is there any further discussion? Mark, would you like to weigh in at all?
This was the one thing I was trying not to accomplish today.
Well, you could.
Exceeded my expectations, right?
Well, sorry for throwing you under the bus.
All right, it's all right.
If you're willing, I think you'd be very, very much qualified, and I'm not. It would last through the first meeting of 2021.
Understood.
Okay.
Did we take a vote?
No, Jan Shockey is asking to be admitted, so I'm going to admit him. And it takes a minute, I think, for that to kind of kick in. We'll pause for just a moment. Jan, can you hear me yet? I can't really see the tiles up here. It is cold in this room. I know it took a couple minutes for several of you to actually show up in the queue when I admitted you. It's kind of awkward. Oh, maybe I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and see if that helps. Okay, I'm going to see if I can unmute. There he is. Okay, Jan, can you hear us? Are you there, Jan? We can see you. Okay, he's muted. Okay, Jan, you're muted right now. There's a microphone icon on the bottom left of your screen. If you click on that, it should give you the opportunity to unmute. There you go. Can you hear us okay? All right, I'm not hearing you. Are you muted again? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now we can hear you. All right. Thank you. Jan, just to catch you up real quick, we've gone through agenda items 1 and 2, and we're now holding the election for chair. There's a nomination and a second for Mark Stogstill to be the chair. We haven't voted on that yet. Also, for your information, we did receive a communication from our appellant for agenda item 4 asking for a deferral. So that item is going to be deferred and hopefully ultimately withdrawn. We'll discuss that after we get through the election. So that kind of catches you up. I think you and I went through the Chapter 5, Article 16 and the bylaws a few months ago. If not, you and I can discuss those later. And if you have any questions about open meetings or open records, call me and we'll go over them. Okay, so back to the election. If there's no further discussion, or Jan, if you don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, just so that we can get everybody's vote on record rather than our normal practice when we're meeting in person of just saying aye. So, Member J, you're muted.
Yes.
Member Stogsdill,
Yes.
Member Brunin,
Yeah.
Member White,
Yes.
Member Scott. Sir, you're muted, Sarah Jane.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Blatt,
Yes.
Member Blanchard,
Yes.
Member Delfelder,
Yes.
Member Shockey, okay, Jan, I thought I saw a thumbs up maybe, or are you voting yes? Okay, so we're having maybe some technical difficulty with Jan. Maybe getting some lag or something. So the result of the election is that Mark Stogsdill has been voted in as the board chair. And at this point, I will thankfully and gratefully turn the meeting over to Chair Stogsdill for a vote for vice chair.
Thank you all, and good afternoon. I would open the invitations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Sarah Jane Scott.
It's fun. Throwing somebody under the bus, huh? Sorry, I should be quiet.
Do we have a second? Somebody.
Laura Blanchard, second.
Okay. So Barry, would you like to call a roll call vote?
Mr. Chair, yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Member J,
Yes.
Member Brunin,
Yes.
Member White,
Yes.
Member Scott,
Yes.
Member Balat,
Yes.
Member Blanchard,
Yes.
Member Delfelder,
Yes.
Member Shockey,
Yes.
got you. All right. Mr. Chair, there is a unanimous vote to elect Member Scott as his vice chair.
Great. So I guess we move on
Yes.
to the next agenda item,
Okay.
4, which is not going to happen today.
Yeah, I was hoping that Brian would get on the meeting to just speak briefly. But he's not here, so I'll kind of give an update as I understand it. I'll share the screen again to show the communication regarding the request for deferral. Okay, so I'll start at the bottom of the email thread. Brian Jimenez is the code enforcement manager. and he is the code official that whose decision was being appealed. He had reached out to the attorney for the appellant, Matthew Goff, and they started a discussion. I think that actually started with a phone call yesterday and continued with an email conversation today. Got too much equipment here at the table to. So that resulted in an email earlier today from Mr. Goff to Mr. Jimenez and copying Mr. Gates, who is the appellant. And Mr. Goff, on behalf of the client, did request a 30-day deferral. And the purpose of the request is basically to give the city and the appellant a little time to come to an agreement on how to resolve the issue. And the issue is basically kind of some deteriorated conditions at the property at 1040 Massachusetts Street. So they're going to work out details, but basically they're working on a proposal to remove some existing plywood, install new, caulk and seal, paint, and then just kind of reasonably monitor to prevent and correct future deterioration. So in light of that effort to resolve the issue, the applicant thought a deferral might be a good way to move forward, and instead of going forward with an appeal. I think they recognize that it might be in the best interest of all parties to work it out rather than to bring the appeal forward right now. Now, this leaves the option open to bring the appeal back in 30 days. And there are some complications to the process. The property is in downtown, so it is regulated by the downtown design guidelines, and improvements or changes to the property would go through a historic review process. So if for some reason there's conflict in that historic review process, or the talks break down, the talks to resolve the issue break down, this still could come back to the Building Code Board of Appeals for a decision on whether the decision is correct on the part of the city to cite the property for violation of the property maintenance code. So that's an update. If there's any questions or discussion needed, I'll turn it back over to the chair for the rest of the process here.
Unless someone else has a comment or a question in regards to this item, we can move on to the next agenda item. Hearing none, I would say let's move to public comment. I'm not sure how that works, Barry, when in a Zoom meeting, so.
Okay.
I don't see any public comment.
Well, there are no public
Okay.
either joining us in person or via Zoom. We do send out public notice of the meeting. We've got a listserv where the public has the opportunity to sign up for notifications. We also have the meeting agenda posted on the city's website. and members of the public have the opportunity to register to provide public comment in advance. We didn't receive any communications requesting the opportunity to provide public comment. So, Mr. Chair, there is no public comment.
Thank you. So just so we're clear, this fulfills our annual meeting requirement according to the bylaws. So we have done our one meeting for the year unless we hear another appeal or some other item comes before us. I think we're done for the year. Is that correct?
Correct. In accordance with the bylaws, yes.
Okay. Then I would entertain adjournment. A motion. Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, Barry, do we get to just say an A or a nay, or do we need to do a roll call?
I'm going to, well, if I could make a comment just real quick. I'd like to thank every member of the board for your service, and the city does as well. Very much appreciated, and we recognize that it is a commitment of time and effort, and it's important that we have members of the community such as yourselves that are willing to serve. So thank you. Mr. Chair, I think technically we should do a roll call. That's what I've seen on other boards and commissions that I've either watched or participated in. So we'll just kind of follow that protocol that I've seen others do. So
That would be fine.
Okay.
We would do so at this time.
I will. Member Jay,
Yes.
Member Brunin,
Yeah.
Member White,
Yes.
Member Scott,
Yes.
Member Balat.
Aye.
I apologize, I should say Vice Chair Scott. Member Blatchard,
Yes.
Member Delfelder,
Yes.
Member Shockey, I think he's got some probably lag issues going on still with his device. Chair Stogsdill,
Yes.
there's a unanimous vote to adjourn.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, everybody. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Really appreciate it.